Hello and welcome to our exploration of the first line of Gate 13. Gate 13 is the fellowship of man. It is the G center gate of the listener. And the first line is called empathy. All first lines are the basis of understanding a hexagram. The first line here, empathy. And we have an overview line, which means that it is not something that you learn right away, but it is something that you learn through your lifetime. And it reads, the ability to relate and commune with everyone with equanimity. The lower trigram, it doesn't really know that there's anybody out there to listen to. Oh, and everything they hear is sort of by accident. This is how they get to hear secrets. It's not that they're eavesdropping or anything like that, but they get to hear things that they didn't even realize they were supposed to hear or could hear. And suddenly they have access to new information. Ra said that this is a bit of a blind, sort of open-ended burden, really. And although it sounds like a nice keynote, well, he did say that the nicer the keynote, the more you should be aware. The nastier the keynote, well, you could actually get a bit more comfortable with that. It's a nice formula to keep in mind. And empathy sounds good. Of course it does. But what it means is that the lower trigram, which has no recognition that there is somebody at the other end of the channel who's going to burden it with all its stories and tales, that there is no idea that that is going to come along. They don't really know that they are empathic. And yes, they have the gift of taking it in because that's genetically what they're here for, to listen. But no, they have no control or awareness over who's going to tell them what. And as such, it can become quite a burden. The exaltation says harmony through affection, a role of openness in listening to others with affection. The 13th gate is the role of the self in its openness for interaction with others, in its ability to be receptive to others. And because this is a gate that collects history, it collects other people's stories. It is by its very nature an empathic gate. It is always pulling people to it in that sense. The 13th gate is very attractive. In the first line, we have the role of openness in listening to others with affection. Now, this is one of the foundations of getting secrets out of people. For example, in crime movies or in the police series that you get on television, we have the good cops and the bad cops. And the good one is so sweet. He always gets the story. They always spill the beans to the good cop. This is the empathic listening with affection. It's the other thing with the first line that we'll see actually when we get to the grounding in the 7 is that we have the authoritarian. So not only are you listening with affection, but there is this quality of authority that comes through all first lines because of the genetic continuity. So there's affection and a sense of authority that you can trust this person you're telling your secrets to. So in the detriment, we have the politician kissing babies, an openness that is never free of motives. This is a superficial affection, but at the same time, the politician that is ready to go out and kiss babies is empathic enough to hear the stories of the parents. It's very important to see that motive is going to be part of the 13th gate process because the 13 is burdened by other people, and it is the lower trigram here where the burden is felt the greatest. They say, why do people bother me? Why do I have to keep listening to everybody? Why do they keep telling me their stories? And there is a genuine affection built into this gate, where it does tend to listen for the sake of soothing the other, rather than for what it thinks it's going to hear, or for the value of what it knows it's going to hear. In that sense, it's just collecting in. In the first line of introspection, there's always something to learn. Well, and there is a real magic here in the 13th gate. There's a link to the serendipity of the 46, the gate in the same circuit on the other side of the G center. because the 13 can open a book and find exactly the passage that is going to change their direction. It's a Sphinx gate, remember. Yeah, it's the cross of direction. Or maybe they'll be in a queue in the supermarket and they'll overhear a conversation that gives them exactly the information that they needed to hear at that moment. So the grounding, as I said, for the sun's transit here through gate 13 is coming from gate 7. And here in the first line, we have the authoritarian. So genetic continuity, this is going to tell us that all first lines, as well as being fundamentally empathic, they are also fundamentally authoritarian. And this is one of the words that can have a little bit of prejudice around it. But the introduction to this line says the iron hand, both enlightened and despotic. So we can see there are always two sides. Perhaps the empathic 13-1 needs a bit of authority about them in order to be able to keep people at bay as well now and then, as well as having that authority about, you can trust me. It's also that shut up, go away. I don't want to hear you right now. But all first lines want to be an authority. That's why they study so hard. That's why they dig into the foundation of things. So again, perhaps the support here is about finding out what empathy really means and becoming an authority in the art of being an empathic being. So Mercury moves into gate 19 at 1754. We've just come from this gate in the sun's transit, so we have a bit of an understanding of this gate of need and wanting, the tribal root gate that is driven to discover the needs of the tribe and make sure that the resources are there for them. And Venus moves into gate 25 tomorrow morning at 0036. This is the G center gate of innocence and unconditional love. And it's a beautiful transition for Venus, the goddess that we associate with love and beauty, although not always with the unconditional side of it. Notice that unconditional love lives in the G center and has nothing whatsoever to do with emotions. And it points at the heart center, but it's not in and of the heart either. So the moon has been in gate 22 since 3:24 this morning, and at 12:49 it moves into the gate of crisis, gate 36, this solar plexus gate that is also called the darkening of the light, to which we can apply our little or not saying, because it could well be the lightening of the dark. This is a gate that is part of the human experiential way, and it carries a nervousness, as all solar plexus gates do. This is the nervousness of not having enough experience. And it's a nervousness that pushes the restlessness to have more and more experiences. So next up, the moon moves into gate 25. This is the gate that we know in the G center because Venus has just gone into it. So we've talked about it already. And finally, we have gate 17 at 7:38 tomorrow morning. This is the Ajna gate of opinions. And the Ajna carries its anxieties. It's an awareness center, of course. So its fear theme is anxiety. And here we have the anxiety of not having our opinions taken seriously. It's a logical, collective gate. And as we've come across previously, the collective, particularly in this logic side, can be very critical. This is a projector energy, which indicates that our opinions will be better received if they've been invited. Okay, so that's the first line of gate 13. Thank you very much for joining me here and starting off this journey through the wonderful 13th gate in the G center. And until we meet for the second line, I wish you well, I wish you love and joy in your life, and go gently.